and thank you for coming on the dismissal tour at Old Parliament House today. We need to head back, right back to the 1970s. It was a time of change for Australia. However, he did not have a majority in the Senate.
My government will act as a caretaker government.
This is the Clerk of the Senate's office, so there was a deadlock. And this is where Sir John Kerr would step in. Sir John Kerr is a massive figure when it comes to the dismissal.
Now therefore I, Sir John Robert Kerr, the Governor-General of Australia, do by this my proclamation dissolve the Senate and the House of Representatives.
Order! Order! Order!
The Honourable Member for Wannon.
Mr Speaker, this afternoon the Governor-General commissioned me to form a government until elections can be held.
The Governor-General dismissed Mr Whitlam as Prime Minister. He appointed the opposition leader, Mr Fraser, caretaker Prime Minister.
What a day it's been in Canberra. Except for the most hardened of political journalists, it's been a mind-bending experience.
Kerr, he was just absolutely deceitful. No Prime Minister should be deceived and betrayed by the Governor-General of Australia.
My cadet comes bursting through the door and says, expletive deleted, "Gough sacked!" We took off through Parliament House. The House went nuts.
Much of our time was actually spent packing up the Prime Minister's office. There was a strong sense that there was some foreign interference.
I cried. I was angry. I wanted to tell the world that this is wrong.
Democracy matters. Democracy is a very fragile thing, and it is important that we all, young people, remember that democracy that day was under challenge.
Australia's governments are made by winning the most seats in the House of Representatives. Most then learn the hard way that to actually govern, they need the Senate. But the founders who wrote our Constitution left a ticking time bomb in it by not unambiguously defining, as other countries did, the limits of the Senate's powers to crush a government's promises and its policies. In 1975, that bomb detonated right here, spectacularly blowing up a prime ministership. 50 years on, this is the story of the dismissal.
Well, may we say, God save the Queen.
Day of extraordinary events in Canada.
I have today advised Sir John Kerr to dissolve both houses of the Parliament.
Because nothing will save the Governor-General.
Hi Greg, great to see you. Come in. 32 Albert Street, Cabramatta, Gough's house.
And how central was this to his prime ministership?
I'll tell you what, on election night 1972, there's no way in the world we'd be able to even get through the door. There's so many people.
Thank you, Mr Whitlam. Mr Whitlam is now going out into the garden to join.
3 years before the tumult of 1975, exuberance and relief enlivened Labor supporters. 23 years of coalition governments ended when Edward Gough Whitlam became Prime Minister. Despite an early dash to the polls 2 years later,
the Prime Minister is expected to see the Governor-General soon to end the 28th Parliament.
compounding ministerial scandals and casualties, an economy stuck in stagnation, and a Senate Labor couldn't control, created perfect conditions in 1974 and into the next year for the Liberal Country Party coalition to go for broke tactically in the Parliament.
Where will it end? It will end as soon as the Senate stops this nonsense, abides by the Constitution, passes the budget.
Problem is, it never did. No budget meant no money, or supply as it's called, to fund government. Doubtful days in deadlock dragged into months of malaise. Then, after a Last Supper with Malcolm Fraser in Melbourne the night before, by Remembrance Day 1975, movement. Of cars, Whitlams and Frasers, both headed to Government House to see the Governor-General, Sir John Kerr. Adding to the drama of what was about to happen, Malcolm Fraser's car actually arrived before Gough Whitlam's. An awkward shuffle was needed into a waiting room to give Sir John Kerr the time and space needed to sack Australia's 21st Prime Minister, then, 15 minutes later, to install Fraser as the 22nd in caretaker. All that then remained was for the nation to find out.
We'll find out, won't we?
Phlegmatic for one just handed the job, the Liberal leader duly informed the House.
I recognise that it must have been the most painful duty of His Excellency to take the decision that he had.
Then a painful 50-year reckoning on the dismissal began.
The place, both chambers and around the corridors, is going absolutely nuts. There's this crowd building up outside Parliament House. Therefore, the place to be was where this action was happening, out the front steps.
Bearded, only 20, and with mic in hand, Lee Hatcher took up prime position for the Macquarie radio network.
Democracy was rocked to its core. I had a sense that this was huge. I knew this was the first time this had happened. Out of nowhere, the big fella arrives, and it was as if the Red Sea was kind of parting for Moses.
Well, may we say, God save the Queen. Because nothing will save the Governor-General.
Whitlam took his cue to unleash after witnessing Kerr's orders or proclamation being read by the official secretary, David Smith.
He stood there and he spat out those defiant words. He created the sound bites of the 70s.
The proclamation which you have just heard read by the Governor-General's official secretary was countersigned Malcolm Fraser.
He was never dull. Gough's rage was such that he could deliver those punchlines. As I stood there, I thought this is just a fitting end, if you like, the final act in a Greek tragedy, and Gough's going out flaming. He more or less, I suppose, won the rhetoric of the day. As grievously wounded as he was, it was a Pyrrhic victory.
This is Mr. Whitlam's second visit to China.
On historic visits to China and other international trips, Ken Begg had witnessed the Whitlam years at close range.
Ken Begg reporting from China for ABC National News.
This was a big moment.
At home, he'd tracked the Senate's showdown with the government for months.
We were going through a crisis. The real fear was that we'd run out of money. The solution to it lay in the hands of the Governor-General, or lay between these two big men who were at odds. Who was going to blink first?
Now the GG had taken matters into his own hands, detonating the government and, within hours, the Parliament, shell-shocked staff and politicians turned spectators.
I'm Richard Whitington. I was on Gough Whitlam's staff in 1975 at the time of the dismissal. We heard that David Smith was coming to the steps of Parliament House to read the proclamation. The adrenaline was running high, a sense of chaos and confusion, bewilderment, betrayal, outrage.
Amid the chaos, a 26-year-old Richard surveyed a sea of seething students and backers of his boss. In the office, a lockdown operation was taking shape to protect state secrets from whoever else might have conspired, in their minds at least, to do this.
Much of our time was actually spent packing up the Prime Minister's office. We assumed we would have to vacate it. There was a strong sense, or a reasonable sense, that there was some foreign interference and that there were documents and records that needed to be protected.
You're saying that was a security or foreign interference consideration?
Yes. Given the drama and the enormity of what had happened, it was safest to assume the worst about what was going on.
By now, crowds had built in Canberra. Word was spreading beyond it.
Are you looking forward to seeing Mr Fraser as Prime Minister?
No, I don't like him. Mr Whitlam's shown that the Labors haven't really been that competent in the government. I think the Liberals will do a much better job.
It was just a question of what the Australian people are going to do about it. And I think that they're going to respond very dramatically to this.
Newsbreakers simply kept it coming.
Today's events are without a doubt the most rapid, the most unexpected, the most dramatic in the history of this country's 75 colourful years since Federation.
If you don't mind me saying so, the two of you look desperately miserable about it.
They wanted power because of their political greed, and they were prepared to sweep their principles and Australian democracy to one side to get it.
I was a uni student in those days. I heard about the dismissal, which I was following on transistor radio. I was absolutely enraged by the dismissal. The actions of John Kerr were utterly inappropriate, unprincipled, disingenuous, deceitful.
Letter of dismissal.
I've already seen this.
It was typed up, but he did sign it in front of you, didn't he, Gough?
No, he'd signed it already.
He'd already signed it.
He'd already signed it.
Through his 20s, then through 26 years in the Senate, John Faulkner became a keeper of the Whitlam flame, unshaken in his belief John Kerr was the central but not the only villain.
There is no doubt that Kerr did collude with Malcolm Fraser. The conservative forces in the nation did not accept the legitimacy of the government. There was a real born-to-rule mentality.
Idealistic when he took the job.
I feel that I can do interesting and useful things.
After the dismissal, Kerr would be spurned, scorned and ridiculed.
Well, anyway you like.
In the years that followed, he chose to live in England. He returned to Australia, where he remained defensive until his death in 1991.
I know what price I paid for what I did. I have no regrets about what I did because it was right. In the same circumstances, which were very special and unusual, I would do the same thing, with all the consequences involved.
You have to go back 10 Governors-General to re-enter the Kerr era, yet his term still seems indelible today.
Greg, welcome to the Governor-General's official study here at Yarralumla in Canberra.
The seat of power hasn't shifted in 5 decades.
I think that Sir John sat in that chair. We think that is the chair that he sat in, and he had a document that he was ready to present.
It wasn't as simple as that on the day, though, was it? Because the opposition leader, he's already here in the building.
Yes.
What did they do with him?
So Malcolm Fraser had arrived early. There would have been a lot of scrambling. There are fortunately a lot of rooms in this place, and we think he knew what was about to happen. Certainly Gough Whitlam did not know.
As the 28th holder of the office, Sam Mostyn's blunt about Kerr's actions, especially his copious communications with the Queen's staff.
In my world, I would not be corresponding in that way. I would not be writing, even talking about the relationship with the Prime Minister or any matters that I was concerned about. I'd be talking to the Solicitor General, I'd be talking to my Official Secretary. We would be managing that here. There is no sense that I would seek that support or information or guidance from the King.
She's a lawyer, well schooled in the Australian Constitution, but for all of that, today's Governor-General views November 1975 as the result of dysfunction between personalities.
Both of them, they didn't trust one another. That's the essence of this. I think the reason that the Governor-General acted in the way he did, he didn't want to have the Prime Minister sack him. So you had this kind of détente going on, that they were both nervous about each other's powers. It felt very dramatic, and in that moment these two men were operating in a way where they were no longer discussing this matter with each other. The job of the Governor-General is to have an antenna at all times, to be noticing whether there's any form of behaviour that's leading to irresponsible government. You're holding a fire hose with the threat of being able to use that big fire hose to do things, but you never want to use it. In this case, the Governor-General did use those reserve powers in ways that had not been done before, in very dramatic circumstances where the Prime Minister had no notice that it was coming.
The government's prepared to send the bills to the Senate time and time again.
I'm very frightened at this action of the Senate for the future of the country of Australia.
Wow. What a place to have managed if you were the Senate President.
In some ways you sort of envy those who are present because it was such a momentous political moment, but at the same time I do wonder as President how hard the job would have been in an exceptionally small chamber.
Liberal Scott Ryan didn't only preside over the Senate, he studied and taught on politics.
The lesson from 1975 is the system worked. The government was about to run out of money.
He maintains politics and politicians created the crisis, leaving Kerr little choice.
I'm not sure what other alternative he possibly had. The government must secure supply to maintain itself in office. We have very different constitutional arrangements that mean our elected Senate, unlike the United Kingdom, unlike Canada, New Zealand doesn't have one, needs to pass all legislation and all laws, including the budget.
You've got to be careful with the Senate. It's more powerful than people understand.
A young senator in 1975, Peter Boehm vividly remembers sitting in the chamber on the 11th when party whips passed a note along opposition benches.
And it said, "Don't let your expression change, but Gough has been sacked. Malcolm is Prime Minister and we're getting the budget as quickly as we can."
Although he'd had misgivings about Fraser's tactics, Boehm was eventually convinced by his leader that their budget blocking was justified by the reprehensible circumstances the government found itself in.
You've no idea about the tension we're under. I felt awful.
Did the ends justify the means?
I think, in retrospect, Whitlam should have had his 3-year term. I think it was impatience. We were going to win the next election whenever it was held. It was just that certain people weren't willing to wait.
Is that still a matter of regret to you?
Yes.
You can depend on Malcolm Fraser. You can depend on Malcolm Fraser. Liberals good enough for me.
As Christmas loomed and in line with the Governor-General's conditions, political leaders rolled straight into campaigning.
Shame, Fraser, shame. You didn't play the game. If this was cricket, you'd lose your wicket and have yourself to blame.
As I brushed past coalition parliamentarians, I muttered to them, "We're going to thrash you." Now, I was absolutely convinced that they would pay a huge price electorally for what they had done. We made our judgment on a faith we placed in the judgment of the electorate to be fair and reasonable in how they would react to what had happened.
Were there some who were heartbroken irrecoverably by the evening of the 11th or even the next day?
There was almost a festive spirit by the end of the day where a great many staff and members of the Parliamentary Press Gallery repaired to a place over in Civic called Charlie's, which is a joint we'd all frequented for months, and happily sang the song composed by the late great Mungo McCallum, and Mungo's words were, "Nothing could be crazier than Malcolm Fraser Grazier." I can't remember the rest of the lyrics, but...
The night got pretty hazy.
It certainly did.
As a lifelong true believer, I would acknowledge that the politics were won by the Conservatives. The coalition won the politics. It's a really easy thing to determine who won the politics because, of course, Labor was very soundly defeated in the 1975 federal election.
The Liberal National Country Party coalition has 51 seats.
Mr Fraser has, I'm told, now arrived at the Southern Cross Hotel in Melbourne.
I congratulate the Liberal and National Country parties on winning the elections and winning them convincingly.
It was a landslide for the rural Victorian, settling into governing occasionally from his farm and claiming vindication for his tactics.
I always believed that there were circumstances in which there was an independent capacity on the part of the Governor-General in Australia or on the part of the Queen in the United Kingdom, and that proved to be correct.
Once the Governor-General had taken his historic step, he telephoned the palace to break the news at 3 o'clock in the morning, London time. Palace officials say the Governor-General was acting on his own initiative in this matter.
From the very first days, the extent of royal involvement in John Kerr's actions was the subject of intrigue. The pursuit of secret documents, known as the Palace Papers, confirmed courtiers, at least, were well informed.
The Governor-General constructed this arrangement, this bridge with the Palace. It wasn't for the Palace, it wasn't for the Governor-General to make that decision for us.
Well, I think the Palace letters showed what a fawning and grovelling individual Sir John Kerr was.
With all votes counted, a new government taking shape and Christmas just around the corner, the Whitlam experiment of a little over 1,100 days in office drew to a close. Supporters who joined the ride 3 heady Decembers ago left to reckon with the double blows of dismissal and defeat.
Time for moving, time for freedom, it's time to begin. Yes, it's time. Time for children. I had goosebumps all the time. I know it sounds corny, but that song is in my heart forever.
Under her stage name, Little Paddy, Patricia Amphlett sang on the anthem that inspired Labor voters. Now, It's Time crashed into tough times.
It overwhelmed me because I felt pretty close to the government that we should have continued with. We'd voted for the Whitlam government. This was all wrong. It's really hard to get over that because it was kind of cruel.
It's time. The national leader of the Australian Labor Party, Mr. Gough Whitlam.
Along came Big Gough with grand ideas that came to fruition. We had more airplay. I guess we sold more records. But we became noticed by the rest of the world because the Whitlam government made Australia more noticeable. I hope it never happens again. Don't forget I am a woman. We forgive sort of and we forget kind of. Not completely.
As the year came to a close, time was definitely up for occupants of the Prime Minister's office.
Whitlam decided to remain in Parliament and he asked me to remain and I was very happy to remain.
Call it revenge, gallows humour or simply mischief. Ever the loyal Labor staffer, Richard Whittington set about inflicting a little sabotage before closing the door on this memorable chapter.
The phone system was called a commander and there was a big console with a whole lot of buttons on it and each button had someone's name. So there was the Secretary of the Prime Minister's Department, there was, the Media Secretary and so forth. And I'm ashamed to confess that I went into the office, had one last look around, and I swapped all the buttons around so that when Fraser took over and he wanted a cup of tea, he'd hit tea lady and it would connect him to the head of the Prime Minister's Department.
You may have in some small measure made the early days of the Fraser Prime Ministership somewhat chaotic.
I did it. I've not heard any reports to the effect that it had any impact. I souvenired my own button that had Whitington written on it and I kept it for a very long time and the other day I actually gave it to one of my grandsons as a memento.
Hello, how are you?
Of the 3 protagonists who created conflict and crisis, the 2 political foes in retirement found much in common, from media ownership to foreign policy to severing ties with the Crown.
See, the viewers would now think that Malcolm's to the left of me.
No, I'm on the right of you.
Malcolm, it's time.
It is.
Enmities of old led to an abiding respect.
We have long agreed to leave the events of 1975 to the verdict of history.
He wasn't the sort of person who bore grudges. He was a much larger man than that, a more generous man than that.
For all the grim predictions made about the dismissal beckoning the end of democracy, it didn't. Parliaments moved on. Political brinkmanship, at least on the approval of money, was never pushed as hard again.
How do you think democracy suffered, if at all?
It suffered temporarily, but it didn't suffer long term. We have a tradition in Australia that election winners take government. That's how it should be. We let the people speak.
It matters that we have a say in it. Democracy that day, Remembrance Day, was under challenge. Our freedoms were under challenge. We shouldn't forget that. Forget the complexities of who was right and wrong. Democracy matters.
There was a unique series of scandals around the government in the time leading up to November 1975 that I've never seen since, and I think most people would reflect upon that. Despite the passions of the time, I don't think it's likely to happen again, but it's always possible.
What a piece of work is man. And at the end of that day, I thought, wow, what motivated Kerr? What motivated Whitlam? What motivated Fraser? It wasn't all noble.
Like politicians of the day, Ken Begg and Lee Hatcher will forever be linked to the story they covered, and proudly so.
There's me down there with the beard. I grew the beard because I was so young I thought I could look older with a beard. It took 25 years to get this photo blown up because I thought I should get the big fella to sign it. And honestly, it was as if he'd never seen it before. He started pointing out all these people, there's that person, there's officers of the Senate and the security guys, and ultimately signed it for posterity. And it now hangs in our lounge room at home.
More evidence that you're never really going to live down this episode, are you?
No, I won't shake this. And for my very small part in it, I'm so delighted to be having that little part.
John Kerr would dispatch David Smith to the stairs of Parliament House. But to tell the story, let's head to the stairs itself. Imagine the tension on the day here. Gough Whitlam would come up behind David Smith to the crowd's roar.
A mere soundbite of the 70s or a soaring piece of political oratory.
He would say the famous words, well may we say,
God save the Queen.
Because nothing will save
the Governor-General.
Either way, young guides and attentive audiences still preserve the script, lest it be buried by the sands of time.
This will set no unhappy precedent for future governments. Render a crushing verdict of censure against these burglars masquerading as caretakers. It became clear that there was no other choice to rid Australia of the worst government since Federation.
I ask you all to maintain the rage and the enthusiasm that you are showing now outside the Parliament.
The 11th of November is a date that rings down through the ages of Australian history. It was the day they hanged Ned Kelly, the day the guns fell silent on the Western Front, bringing World War I to an end, and it was the dismissal. The first two, violent events. The last one, entirely peaceful. Perhaps that's the legacy that's really worth remembering for another 50 years.